People love us arguing and making mistakes. So because we're near Christmas, yes, I've said the C word, because we're in December now, I'm allowed to. We thought that we would share with you things that we hate about property, because we're normally so upbeat and positive about how to do things and how great property is and why everyone should do it. So today we're going to change it a little, and don't want to be neggy Nellies or anything, but we're going to talk about the real stuff that genuinely really riles us, annoys us, that we detest about the business in property, because I reckon that's what our listeners are up for. Welcome to This Property Life podcast, brought to you by Property Wealth System, and I am Caroline Claydon. Today I'm joined by my partner in life and in all things property, Nick Claydon. We've had incredible feedback on the podcast we've done together, mainly the ones where we're talking about making mistakes.
Or arguing.
People love us arguing and making mistakes. So because we're near Christmas, yes, I've said the C word, because we're in December now, I'm allowed to. We thought that we would share with you the things that we hate about property, because we're normally so upbeat and positive about how to do things and how great property is and why everyone should do it. So today we're going to change it a little, and don't want to be neggy Nellies or anything, but we're going to talk about the real stuff that genuinely really riles us, annoys us, that we detest about the business in property, because I reckon that's what our listeners are up for.
Well, the big question is, can we keep this down to one episode? I'm not sure.
Well, that is the burning question. And I think, there'll be elements that Nick dislikes more than I dislike, for sure, which is why we're a good partnership. But do you want to kick us off with your biggest loathe of property?
This is in no particular order.
Okay.
But why don't we start with banks?
Oh, yeah. Lenders.
Lenders.
The lenders, yeah, they are so fickle. They love you one minute and then they don't like you the next. They change their criteria every week, which, okay, I get. They've got their own game that they're playing. But yeah, they're really annoying. Really, really annoying, because actually their whole purpose of being is to lend money, but they'll try and find any excuse not to lend the money.
Yeah, I think that's I find it very frustrating. I would probably better say at the beginnings. We might have some of our team listening to this, so please don't take offence. These are just things that we find frustrating, I guess. And I think to be fair, a lot of people that we talk to in the lenders do kind of agree with some of the things that we say, but they are a bit hamstrung. But yeah, okay, banks. So for me with banks, yeah, it's frustration that they are there to lend and support, but sometimes I think they make it really difficult.
Yeah.
And I get that they have different criteria to what we have. Yeah, we were in a meeting quite recently, I think, with one of our potential lenders, who pretty much said the banks don't like business people.
They don't like entrepreneurs. The very phrase, they don't like entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They like people who are going to consolidate and take breaks from business, and maybe, the phrase "keep your powder dry."
They don't like to, grow too fast.
Aggressive growth is not their thing. Now, look, if we were being brutally honest, for entrepreneurs and real go-getters that want to massively grow quickly, then you'd have to go down the venture capital route, as opposed to banks. But then you're giving half your business away.
So it depends whether we're sticking this to banks or to lenders, lenders in general or banks. But I'm going to stick more on the banking side, because there are lenders for every part of the process. But you as you say, you'll be giving something away, whether that's insanely high interest rates, because we have lenders that we work with that are really flexible and really quick and really good, but eye-wateringly expensive.
Yeah.
Or you've got venture capitalists who will help you grow, but they'll take a massive chunk of it.
Yeah. Well, to give an example, if we use one of our latest projects, that we if we'd called the end use of that building something different, we would have got lending all day long. But because it was in the hospitality industry, we had to wait 12 months on high interest just to prove that it worked, which is insane because if we'd called it an HMO, we would have got lending day one. And
Yeah.
it seems to be that the banks have different attitudes and appetites for different industries.
Well,
And there's this criteria of, oh, you need to have 12 to 24 months trading before we will lend, which is insane when you've got a track record and you can show that the model works elsewhere, for
yeah.
example.
Okay, so here's another really good example. I think one that I still laugh about now. So I think when we were starting doing Stafford Street, we were talking to, and Stafford Street, if anyone who doesn't know, is our 15-bed boutique hotel in Edinburgh. We're just starting another one in Leith. But the first one we did, I remember speaking to a couple of banks about it, and this is a major bank, a commercial bank that does a lot of stuff in Edinburgh and Scotland and and all over the UK. To be fair, big bank. And I remember talking to one of their commercial lenders there, who said, "Yeah, when we're talking about, they're like, yeah, we're not really into hospitality at the moment. Bit wary about hospitality." And I was like, "But this is, a hotel in the centre of Edinburgh. Edinburgh being the number one tourist destination
In the
in the
UK
UK,
for 5 years
like
running straight.
5 years running. It is the number one tourist destination.
Occupancy levels at 80% plus throughout the
Yeah,
city with room.
80%, like documented across the city, 80% occupancy rates. And this bank, like, yeah, we're not really into hospitality just now, but worried about it. I said, well, what are you lending on? And they said retail. I'm like,
Retail.
have you read a newspaper recently?
Oh my
It's
God.
have you walked down a high street recently? You're lending on retail, but not on hospitality, and that blew my mind. And it was like, I just can't get my head around that.
Yeah, they're big juggernauts. They take a long time to move
Yeah,
and to adapt. They're just not on the same wavelength as us entrepreneurial property investors at all. And so there is this massive gap between us that we have to try and find a common ground on. But boy, is it painful. So I massively agree with you on the bank side. Sorry to all our banking
we
partners out there. You know who you are.
we agree. We've agreed on something.
We agreed on that one.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I better move on. Let's find something a bit more contentious.
Okay, go for it.
Let's get builders.
Oh, come on now. I love my builders. I love my builders. So, just to give a bit of context to our listeners, Nick does not like dealing with builders. He leaves all of that to me. Um,
Well, I sometimes have to come in. We do kind of a good cop, bad cop thing, don't we?
well, also, being female, builders like to think that I'm just a daft lassie that doesn't know anything. And I do play that card to a certain extent. But why actually, we've never actually discussed what is it about builders that you struggle with?
Good question.
Actually,
Um, I I don't particularly enjoy the whole development process. To be honest, I worry about it. If I could go into stasis on day one of a development and wake up on the day that it's ready to open, I can do all the systems side of it and all that, I'll be really happy. Um, I find it pretty stressful. I find dealing with builders who, I don't really, I don't know about building, right? I know what I need to know, but I don't know, I don't like not being in control, I guess, is, I have builders telling me one thing and I think, well, that doesn't sound right, but I have to kind of defer to their knowledge and, it's frustrating, I guess. And just the whole environment of it, of a building site, I don't like it.
well,
Don't,
I guess you're not so good at the playing the game bit. And with builders, there's lot of banter, a lot of game playing of, building a rapport with a builder is a different beast to building a rapport with, let's say, a property agent or
yeah. And I
a
quite like that
vendor.
side of it, but
You like that,
I
whereas builders are a different breed.
yeah,
Um, they're
yeah.
used to
But
there's no PC, right? It's like stepping back into the 70s where um, everything we know in the modern world to be right and wrong and how to behave. It doesn't exist on a
Yeah.
building site. If you are loving what you're hearing on this Property Life podcast, you can join us for a free training that will give you a 7-step process, a roadmap on how to start and scale a property investment business. The 7th step of the process is the most surprising of all. It really shakes people when they learn that 7th and final step. You will also get some live case studies of deals our students are working on right now for training that's worth over £1,000. You can access that free by clicking the link in the show notes to access that 1 hour of content today.
I think that's part of it. Kind of because you want to get on with your builder sometimes. This is not all builders, by the way. Right?
Yeah.
This is a couple of our experience. They might say some things that I would find quite offensive, and I kind of do I call them out or do I just have to roll with it? And so that I find a bit frustrating. I have to let things go that I normally wouldn't, although you wouldn't get in any other areas of property investing or business, if you like. You tend to get it.
I agree.
I'm always very wary about kind of being too friendly. I always have to I feel I have to hold back a bit because sometimes you have to hold them to account.
Yeah.
So I kind of let you go in and do the friendly bit.
Yeah.
And I feel I have to kind of hold back and not do that because as I said, sometimes, you might have to go in and go, well, actually, look, this is wrong. This is a problem.
Well, I think if you give a builder an inch, they'll take a mile, right? And it's an industry where there's a lot of shysters. There's a lot of people who are not particularly good at it. They talk a good game. They can be lazy. They're misogynistic. They're sexist. They're racist.
Just caveat that there's some amazing builders out there.
There are some amazing builders that are not that.
They're absolutely not that. No.
When you're on a building site, the banter is like stepping back decades. Sometimes. And
example? Do you want to give an example?
Well,
the rainbow flag example.
Yeah, the rainbow flag. I think I turned up to one site that we had and there was rainbow flags all over the scaffolding. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. They're like so progressive. This is them really supporting pride or whatever. I didn't really put any thought behind it apart from that's brilliant. And then when I went on site, I said, guys, I'm really like impressed that you have the rainbow flags out there. I think that's really supportive, well done kind of thing. And they were like, nah. The young apprentice over there, he got pissed at the weekend and ended up in the bath with his mate, so he's a total gay boy. And so the whole site were like picking on this poor little apprentice that you'd be lucky if he was 17, calling him out for being gay. And so the gay flags were irony. And I'm like, dudes, if you had an HR department, or they were like, what's HR? If there's no one, if you're in that industry, that poor little apprentice, there's no one for him to go to and say, actually feel quite uncomfortable with my work environment, like sexual harassment, bullying, abuse. That's just part and parcel of the site. And I'm not knocking it, but I think when you're not used to that environment, you need to have a really, really thick skin. Like I have absolutely been offended by things that I've heard on site, like guys on site have commented on things that I'm wearing or, have made innuendos or whatever. And I've got quite a thick skin where I can just brush that off. I clock it, note it, and then the line is drawn where it's like, okay, that's maybe when I wheel in Nick and having a token male to come on in and say, yeah, come on now,
That's
guys.
not okay.
It's not okay.
Yeah. It's, so I've had, builders trying to play us off against each other.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. But look, as I said, caveat that with, look, we know some really amazing builders out there that actually don't operate like that.
Yeah.
But I just don't enjoy that part of it.
It's the Wild West. The whole building industry is like the Wild West.
Yeah, it's like it's its own bubble and the normal rules don't apply within that.
Yeah. Normal life.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Normal life does not apply. It's absolutely hectic. But I kind of enjoy it.
I know
So
you quite like it. You quite like it. You quite, yeah, enjoy that part, being a bit rogue.
yeah, it's very rogue. It's very like off piste.
Yeah.
And so, but I play up to it. So for example, we've just taken delivery of my personalized high vis pink jacket for site and my neon pink hard hat. And I will take the piss out of myself on site to
Oh, that's
get
just
the
someone
guys
called
on
you out.
site.
Someone
And
called you out on social media, didn't they?
yeah, well, someone said, "Oh, you're wearing trainers, blah blah blah." But yeah, whatever. I've got boots. I do have boots. Um, so I've got the gear that's very princess like to take the Mickey, and I think I don't take myself too seriously when I'm on site. But when the builders like you, then I find that helps the project a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's what we kind of send you in for, is to get everyone liking you. Sometimes they like you too much, don't they? We've had a couple of experiences of that.
Yeah, a couple of very interesting messages on Facebook at interesting hours of the morning.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah, enough said. Move on.
yeah. Right. So next,
That's builders. That's builders. So
well,
banks, builders.
oh, let's
I'm gonna.
we'll
I,
go
I've got to come in hard on planning,
planning.
and I don't really want to spend too much time on this because I
No.
don't think I'm alone in thinking that the whole planning
Well,
process.
this could be a whole episode on
Yeah,
its
the
own.
the process. I was going to say the logic behind it. There is no logic behind it.
Well, there
The
should
people
be, but there isn't.
Yeah, the people behind it. It's there's no common sense. There's actually no common sense. The precedents being set thing that doesn't really exist. They'll
But there's people with too much power that haven't earned it, that
yeah,
have no idea what they're actually trying to control, and they have all this power. Particularly like a committee. I mean, we can talk about that experience.
yeah.
You've got people making major decisions and multi-million-pound developments that have absolutely no concept of what they're doing.
And I think the big thing is they just don't care if they're good or bad at their job, and
No
there's
accountability.
no accountability for there's no bonus if they do something well, and there's no consequence if they do something wrong. So why should they care? There's just apathy, and
I'm
you
just,
have
I'm
to
just going to caveat
really.
as well and say, look, I'm sure there's some very good planning officers out there,
I love
right?
how you're caveating everything we're saying. I know we are
Well,
being very generalist here.
all we're just talking about is our experience.
Yeah,
And our experience where we are on the last couple of projects that we've done has been awful.
yeah, absolutely dreadful. And you start to like look at your. Oh, I think the biggest challenge I have with it is there's no control. Like I feel like I can control situations with the banks or the builders by the way that we behave, or there's other options available to us. So if we don't like one particular bank the way that they're operating, there's other
Yeah.
banks. But with planning, you are stuck. There's nowhere for you to turn. You are literally in this void waiting
And
with no action.
you're waiting on a person, on an individual who might just not like you, or might not like your planning consultant,
Yeah,
or has a personal connection with someone
yeah.
that has influence. And they can just, I mean, we had one recently where our planning got turned down, and our planning consultant was like, they can't do that.
Yep.
But they did. And then once the decision is made, then you've got to go through a whole nother process that then takes forever. I mean,
Months.
we're talking months,
Yeah.
to try and get around a situation. And then what I don't think. Well, okay, with planning officers, or they either don't appreciate or they don't care that you have significant holding costs on a property. If you're waiting for planning to go through,
Yeah,
it
they
might
don't care.
take last two times, straightforward, and not even complicated planning decisions, straightforward, policy based. Class 4 to class 7 in Scotland is straightforward, and
Yeah.
yet both times it's taken a year.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Um, and that's
Actually,
a year of holding costs, which
yeah.
is tens of thousands of pounds, and either they just don't appreciate that, or they just don't care. And from my perspective, planning should be there to encourage sustainable development, and along along with planning policy. That's what it's there to do. It's not there to automatically stop you and for you to try and justify why your development should go ahead, and which is what it feels like. It feels like you're putting it in and you're going to get rejected,
Yeah.
or there's
They're
going to
like,
come back with pages of you got to do this, you got to do that.
well, there's a game that they play, right? They've got a deadline they've got to make the decision by, but they know that they can push that deadline by asking you a question. So they wait till the final hour
Yeah,
of their deadline and go, "Oh, can you provide a report on this?" You're like, you could have
yeah.
asked for that like right at the beginning.
And then you go back to the bottom of the pile, and you can't speak to anyone.
Nah.
So it's not like with a bank or your lawyers or anything like that, where you can pick up a phone and actually have a conversation. You can't even do that.
Right, I'm getting bored of this now.
Yeah, all right.
I said I wasn't going to spend any time on that, and you went off on a rant.
Well, I did, because it's so
Proper
frustrating.
rant.
Yeah, because it's a broken system, and
Okay.
it needs to be fixed. It won't get fixed anytime soon, and you've got to work with it. But
You're going to
yeah,
write to Keir Stammer about it.
there's no point. What's the
No
point?
point.
No point.
No point in even trying to change.
There isn't.
Whatever.
It's just not going to happen. So let's move on.
Let's move on. Yeah, it's so boring, that one.
Yeah,
Really boring. I'm going to talk about lawyers.
you're going to go lawyers.
I'm going to go lawyers. I'm going to go bloody
We have to
lawyers.
caveat that again.
Let's caveat that again. My brother's a lawyer.
Some of my best friends are lawyers.
All your best friends are lawyers. Okay. So my take on lawyers is this, right? They are trained to see the downside. They're trained to see the catch. They're trained to see what could go wrong, right? Which is great when they're looking at a contract and trying to protect their client. But when you're trying to have, again, a sensible decision, they get so... They
buy a building.
Trying to buy a building. They get so caught up in the detail, and you're like, does that really matter in the real world, though? No,
Well, they come back with that. Oh, this is a problem. Oh, yeah, we've got a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
What's the solution?
Oh, they say the problem. They go, well, can we just get an indemnity policy against that? Oh, yeah, we could do that. How much is that? It's like 200 quid. That's not, that's not a problem. Just do that.
Okay, so it's not so much the detail stuff that bothers. It's the time they take and what the actual are they doing. Like, it's really, well, AI is probably going to take most of conveyancing away from lawyers. I'm going to go there and say, yeah, in 5 to 10 years' time, conveyancing lawyers probably won't exist. What do you think of that? Do you think that's...
well, look, I mean, I think it's one of the professions is at risk. We were in a situation relatively recently where we got legal advice that was quite expensive. I'd been on ChatGPT before and asked a question and got an answer that was 99% of what the legal advice was, and one was free and one cost thousands of pounds. But so yeah, I think it's a profession. Parts of that profession,
parts of it. Yeah, parts of it. We will need, obviously, certain elements of it to still exist. But I think conveyancing, the straightforward conveyancing, I'm not being funny. The important part is the searches. Like, can this person legally sell it? Are they entitled?
Why does conveyancing take 3 months?
I have no idea. Like, it's literally like they communicate by carrier pigeon. And by the way, when they ask you for a signature and they want the hard copy and the original and all that, I'm just like, what century do we live in?
So, dude, have you heard of
DocuSign? I know.
And sometimes we've had to say that to lawyers. We've had to say, they've said, oh, we need wet ink signatures. Can you do DocuSign? And they're like, oh, yeah, we can do that. Well, do that.
Yeah. Let's move with the digital times, people.
Yeah, let's move this along.
But then it's like, oh, you have to sign that, and then can you post it back to me? Like, oh my God, I'll put that on my horse and get the courier to get it to you. Just come on.
I'll seal it with wax and send it on the...
with my pinky ring family crest. Anyway, right. So that's solicitors. I mean, it's more just the time. I think I get frustrated with the amount of time that is wasted in property between, negotiating a purchase price to actually physically owning it. There's 4 months.
Yeah, it could take 4 months. Like, why? Why does that take?
It's like that doesn't need to happen. Anyway, let's move on again.
And breathe.
Breathe.
Next? All right, let's go with those people who are all like, buy-to-let is dead, doesn't work. Journalists, mainly property journalists.
Oh, the media, man. Yes, we are. I'm with you on this one. But do you know what? I think it's wider than just the media, because the media then feed to the public opinion, and the public opinion then is landlords are bastards, and we're all scumbags keeping the first time buyers out. We're not going to go there again. But the journalists who comment on the property industry, the property market, and they barely own their own home, let alone know
Yeah,
anything about investing at all.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I've read an article quite recently in one of the broadsheet papers, and it was, commenting on the property market, and I actually one of those moments I thought, well, I'm going to find out who this journalist is, and read it, and of course they're a journalist. They don't have any property. They have no concept of what property investing is, and yet they're commenting on, in a newspaper. It's a big national newspaper, and that influences people. And in some ways, it's good for us because if it
But
puts
what were they saying in it? Actually, put some context. What were they saying in it? You
well,
took
it was all
ages to get that
about
sentence out.
yeah, it was about the fact the usual stuff about first time buyers can't buy property. Is property's too expensive. I'm like, hang on a minute, right? You're talking about one very specific group of first time buyers that can't buy in London, right? Because if you go to Nottingham or Mansfield, you can buy a house for 70 grand, right? Go
Yeah.
look it up, right? You can. So I'm sorry, but if there's plenty of parts of the country where first time buyers are quite happily going to buy a house, right? In London, yeah, I get it. It's expensive for various reasons, but that's just one bit. The rest of the country, you can absolutely go and buy a house. If you've got a salary of 25, 30 grand and there's two of you, you're talking 60K salary, you can go and get a mortgage for three and a half times that. Of course you can go buy a house. It's ridiculous. So, and you keep seeing this in the national papers about properties unaffordable. It's like, it's not. In one bit, it is. But London's always been expensive. When I
Yeah.
was living in London, when I was 20, 25, it was still expensive then, you know. So anyway,
There's
that
another little rant. A
is
little
another rant.
rant. It
Yeah.
is true. Like the journalists do sort of whip up a little. Remember to click the link in the show notes for you to access a free online 1 hour training special that's worth over £1,000 to start and scale your property business today. Click the link in the show notes to watch. Little friends, it's interesting when you meet people for the first time and they say, "What do you do?" And you say, "I'm a property investor," and they're like, "Oh God, right. Well, I bet it's really tough for you at the moment because it doesn't really work with the taxes, does it? It's not worth it because of the tax." And you're like, "Where are they getting that from?"
I read an article somewhere that
And there
says
we
it's on, land buy-to-let is dead because of all the tax. It's like, it's not at all. If you're buying the right thing, if you're trying to buy a £500,000 new build flat in London, then yeah, it doesn't work. But that's not property. That's not property investing. If you're buying a 70K house in Cumbernauld, then it does work, and the tax is irrelevant or insignificant.
I'm going to tag on actually on the back of your journalists,
Hmm.
basically make it broader. Anyone in an advisory position who doesn't actually know what they're talking about. So I had a conversation with a property agent, and I called him out and said, "Why don't you invest in property? You're constantly selling it to investors. Why don't you buy for yourself?" And he said, "Well, I sat down with my IFA and he said, well, when you sell it, you're going to pay tax on this. And when you buy it, you'll pay tax on that." And, and just this IFA just constantly talked about tax. And I said to this agent, I'm like, "Why on earth are you listening to an IFA? Like, do they invest in property? Where are they investing their money?" And I think people listen to the wrong people
And what's an
all
IFA?
the time.
What's an IFA trying to sell you? How do they make their money?
Pension, clearly, pension. He was all about the pension, 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 pension.
Right.
So
But
he
then
can
you look
get
at
his
that and you go, why? Why are they pushing pensions? Well, because they get
to
paid on
get
that.
paid. Yeah,
They tend to take a
everyone's got their
percentage,
game.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, no, totally agree with you. We're agreeing far too much on this episode, but I do agree
Well,
with
you
you.
annoyed me when you took so long to get that sentence out, and I was just like, I
Yeah.
don't even know what you're trying to say here. Anyway, that's normal. Right, let's move this on. I'm going to say surveyors. I mean, I love my surveyors, but I hate them. It's like a love-hate frenemy situation where we need them to value our buildings so that we then get the lending from the banks that we don't like. They're all intrinsically linked. All these people that we hate are actually all in it to make our lives tricky.
Yeah, I'm going to split that. I agree with you, but I'm going to split it slightly between residential and commercial surveyors, because commercial surveyors, you do have a little bit of control, you do have a little bit of
Yeah.
influence
Yeah.
over, whereas residential, you don't. And, I've had a situation where valuing an HMO, and I've had a lender send out a surveyor, and as soon as he turned up, I knew this is going to go badly.
Why?
Well,
Why
okay,
did you know?
because I was there to meet them, as we teach everyone, meet your surveyors, and and make sure you're justifying. And he basically ignored me,
What?
and yeah, he ignored. He was just
How
like,
rude.
yeah,
Well,
really,
by the
really
way,
rude, really rude.
he wouldn't have ignored me if I'd gone.
He would have done his best, I think. Um, but yeah, and he started pacing out the front of the building. I said, "Do you want to use my laser measure? It's a bit quicker." And he was like, "No," and started pacing out to measure the width of the building. I'm like, "That's not very accurate. Do you want to just use? No, don't want to use that." And yeah, ended up this property that we were, yeah, a 6 bed, brand new HMO. Looking for evaluation at 220. He went through the whole building, came out, and I said, right, okay, so here's what we're looking for. How do you feel about that number? And he was like, didn't even answer, and just said,
Wow.
yeah, just said, look, well, I'll get the report out to the lender, and just stormed off and got into his old school. He literally had a Jaguar. He was like a 1980s throwback. He had his hat, a Jag. I was like, this is disaster. And he valued it at 120 grand.
120.
120, yeah.
That's
Which then wasted about a month of work. Had to go back to the lender and go, your surveyor doesn't know what they're doing. So we had to get another lender because they wouldn't go back on it. And then the proper surveyor went out and valued it at 220. It's like,
yeah.
what, same building. What is that?
Well, we had one interestingly recently where, and this has never happened. And by the way, like there'll be a blue moon in the sky with this. The surveyor went out to value an HMO for us and put a crazy low valuation on it that even the bank turned around and said, "You're an idiot. We're going to take our desktop over you because you don't know what you're doing."
Yeah, that's
Now
never happened.
that has never, ever, ever, ever happened
We love
before.
that bank.
But we love that bank. There, we take it all back, banks. We love you. That was sensible. That
Yeah.
was, just normal behavior where you look at something and go, that doesn't add up.
Yeah, I think they'd just given a wrong instruction or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, it was crazy. So yeah,
Yeah, there's resi surveyors
yeah,
that can really, again, that power thing, bit of a, they know that they've got you by the short and curlies and that you need a certain valuation, and they can decide, depending on what side of bed they've got out in the morning,
yeah.
if they're going to give that to you.
They always try and chip you a bit. Whatever you put, they'll go low. So we just add a bit on and hope to get what we want on the value.
But on the commercial side, it is different. There is a lot more conversation, reasonable discussion. Look, you'll always come up against challenges in those conversations where you disagree. But what are surveyors worried about? They don't want to overvalue because they might get chucked off a lender's panel, and they've also got their professional indemnity insurance that if it ever comes back on them, then they're in trouble. So, for example, I heard a scenario where a surveyor had valued a building way in excess of what it was actually valued, like what its actual true value was, and the vendor who owned that building at some point reneged on their lending, fell into arrears, and of course then the bank are looking at repossessing, and then they find that the building is worth way less than what that surveyor had initially valued it at, and there you have the storm that is created for both the bank, the surveyor, and the vendor there. So yeah, I get it why there can be cautious, but there's cautious and there's silly. Anyway,
Yeah,
but no, I say with my, tongue in cheek, I do love my commercial surveyors because they take us to lunch and we do have good relationships with them. We have nice events. We do get drunk with them and all fun stuff. But
you still have to battle them.
you still have to battle them. And I think from everything we've discussed today, you know, while we say we hate all these elements within property, they are just part of the game. You know, it's a bit like 3D chess some of the time. There's many elements to the puzzle that have to all fit together, and it's not always straightforward. But the alternative is going to your 9 till 7 job, working for an a hole of a boss, building someone else's dream for them, and then retiring with a crappy pension. And I would take what we have to deal with on a daily basis every time over, the mundane monotony of going to a job that probably isn't fulfilling me too much.
Yeah, I agree with you again.
Oh my gosh. But having said that, when I talk to my friends, my school friends, my uni friends, even my brother about, some of the challenges we face and some of the things that we're battling, he's like, I could never do what you do. They all say, I could never do what you do. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, well, I could never do what you do. um, I think it's important that we end on a positive while we're like bitching, having a mass bitch session.
Can't end on a positive yet. I've got another negative one, I'm afraid.
Oh, come on now.
I've got to chuck it in. I have to.
Okay. Okay.
It's part of the property, world, and that is the gurus. I'm going to say the bullshit gurus who are like all
Yeah.
about no money down, property crash coming. Or how many times do you see it? Property crash is coming. I've seen it for
Well,
like
this
10
is
years. I know
this is social media, right? This is the where you get the BS gurus in property who've only been in the game about 5 minutes that are shouting about how you can become a multimillionaire and have a supercar by Christmas. Um, Social media has given them that voice,
It's so tedious, though.
and it's a dirty, dirty, dirty game. I hate it. And look,
We're not going to, we train people in property, right? So we've got to say that. But,
yeah,
I, we never call ourselves gurus, and I would never, accept that as a term. But other people do use it about other property trainers, whatever.
yeah,
But you get the people who have bought a couple of houses, and suddenly they're
a coach.
they're a coach or a trainer, or you get someone that you know 5 years ago was talking about why property is dead, and shouldn't invest in property. You should be doing multi-level marketing or whatever. Suddenly they reappear and it's like property's amazing and look at all the property I've done, but never see them actually in a building or actually doing anything remotely like developing a property or anything. But they'll stand in front of their Bentley or their massive mansion and go, look at me, aren't I amazing? That
Yeah.
stuff winds me up.
I know. Look, I know exactly who you're talking to and who you're referring to, and the list of these types of folk out there is endless. And we've had really frank conversations with each other about, do I want to even be part of that industry? Do we just stop training people? Because actually, although I enjoy it, I don't want to be tarred with that brush. And you've got to have a personal brand on Instagram, and you've got to have this, and you've got to have that. And I do have someone now building my social media presence. There's certain things that I will not say on social media because I think it is BS, and I know lots of other people say it. And it means that my reach is probably not as big. It means that my following is not as big. But actually, I'd much rather have my integrity and a bit of authenticity behind what we say than getting the numbers. Look, our property education business is only a very small part of our business, and people will say, well, what if you're so good at property, why do you do it? It's like, well, because I've got knowledge that I can monetize. If someone's willing to pay me to give them what's in my brain, why wouldn't I use that revenue stream?
It's the same as you can say that about anyone.
I know.
Why do you do that? Well, because you have knowledge that is valuable.
Yeah.
And we had people help us. We paid for it.
Yeah.
Paid for education. We had people helped us accelerate us really quickly.
Yeah.
I'm sure we would have got there in the end, but it would have taken a lot longer.
Yeah. A lot longer. Well, we tried it without any kind of education or mentorship and everything for 10 years.
Yeah.
And in that 10 years, we got 7 buy-to-lets, which was better than, all our peers, which is great. But then when you step into a whole new network of people who are buying like one a month, that's a different ballgame, right?
Mm.
So, uh, yeah, the gurus are a thorn in our side. I try and ignore them. I just unfollow a lot of them. But unfortunately, people love these little youngsters that are ambitious.
Mainly
Want
blokes, I've got to say.
they want the supercar. I mean, neither of us have got a supercar. Not because we can't have one, or we just, it's like
It's just
we're
not about that.
it's not about that for us. So yeah, I mean, I get why you dislike it. I do think it's separate to actually being an investor.
Yeah,
It's
totally. Yeah,
more
it is
involved
there
with
though, isn't it? It is.
it
If
is
anyone, for new people looking to get into property, they see these people and get hoodwinked or
yeah.
get kind of sucked into that kind of mindset.
And
And
I do think I dislike it more because I feel we might get tarred with the same brush. That's probably where my dislike for it is. But I hate people getting ripped off. I hate people getting hoodwinked. That's
there's also another reality where people will want training and they'll take it, but then their expectations are that you do it all for them,
yeah,
or that its success comes overnight, or it's not, or it's easy. I think what we try and do in this podcast is to show you that it's worth it, but it's not easy.
no.
The hard work is involved, but it is worth it in the end, and it's not about the supercars and all of that.
Well, it
It's
might be for some people, right? Like
Yeah, but it's not
on
really.
our
When you dig deeper, though, it isn't. Because
yeah,
if I'm out mentoring people, and if anyone starts off saying it's all about the money, it's like need to dig deeper here, because it isn't.
yeah,
It's nice. Yeah, there are some nice to haves for sure, but it shouldn't ever be about that.
yeah. Okay,
Right, let's end on your positive then. Come on.
and so my bring back the positive. Well, just like I said earlier, like it is challenging, and there's things that take a lot longer than they should because of certain hoops we have to jump through. But actually, when you get to that end point where you've purchased, you've refurbed, you've rented it, and you're collecting the profits, suddenly you can sit back and go, "That was worth it." And most people would say, right, that's done. Let's not do that again. But no, like gluttons for punishment, we dive in again and go again and again and again and again because you just move your bar. And I think the coolest thing, the thing I love most about property is the freedom and the power that it gives over our lives. Being able to decide what we want to, planning our holidays, for example, we don't think about how much a holiday is going to cost. We choose where we want to go, and then we can just get an asset that then is allocated to pay for that. It's if we want to up our level and what I call increase our altitude in life, we can make that happen. We're not restricted by set incomes that we both have. It's kind of like a blank check that we can keep going, keep going, keep going if we want. And that part is exciting to me. There's
Yeah,
my positive. What's your
yeah, it's
positive?
very positive. Yeah, no, similar. It's that I don't know people being misled by those gurus who make it look easy. It's not easy, and anyone that comes with us knows that. But it is worth it, and that's what I say to anyone that I work with is like it's not easy, but it is worth it, because when you do get to make your own choices, or you can see that the path that you may be on, you might be in a high earning job, but when you retire, if you look at your pension and you properly look at it, don't just let the IFA tell you what's going on. Actually go and have a look at it and do the maths. It's not great, and you need a different answer, a better alternative, and that property can do that for you. And so that's what I love about it.
There we go. Well, if you have enjoyed the content of our podcast today, do tune in again weekly where we drop episodes for you. I'm holding a live Q&A session on Sunday, the 1st of December. Actually, you might miss that by the time this episode drops.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, we'll record it and we will drop it as an episode in the same week, just as a Brucey bonus, so you can hear the questions and the answers as they come in if you're not on Facebook. So you can see that, see and hear it here on this Property Life podcast. Check out Property Wealth Systems websites. We've got a number of exciting events coming up. We've just released our quarterly networking events for everyone to get together and learn from each other. So check that out. If you want to attend one of our 3-day events, it's all on the website for you. But we've loved having you here on our podcast today. Tune in again next week and we'll see you then.
Yeah, and do let us know any questions. You can fire questions at us if you go to this Property Life website. You can record a question or you can email us and ask a question. We can cover those on this podcast. But great. Thanks for listening. Enjoyable as always. Caroline?
Of course. No arguments today.
No
Hey?
arguments this time. It's a bit sorry, everyone, but we'll get back to something that we can
We'll
argue about.
spice it up next time. Bye now.
Right. Bye-bye.
Join us for our 3-day property intensive workshop. This is world renowned. This is the program I took global for Rich Dad Education and Robert Kiyosaki. This 3-day intensive workshop will go through a step-by-step process on how you are going to choose the correct strategy for your life, your circumstances. We'll go through the pros and cons of each of these strategies, and then we'll show you how to actually pinpoint your investment area, how to find the deals in that investment area, as well as how to do the deal analysis. That deal analysis saves you from making any expensive mistakes in the property market. We'll show you how to raise the money. There are more than 40 different ways of raising money to structure your deals in a creative way. We'll show you how to make lump sums of cash, as well as residual monthly income. We'll also look deep into the whole psychology and how you can use debt to create generational wealth. We'll go into multi-million pound transactions as well as the little baby buy-to-lets at the start. And we'll show you how to actually create that wealth plan for the future so that your generations to come can benefit from the work you put in today. When you secure your ticket to the next 3-day intensive property workshop, you will also qualify for our bonus material. We have a learning platform with over 20 videos and downloadable documents to get you started and prepared for attending the workshop. In those videos, whenever they're updated, you will get access to that content. We will also make sure on the workshop that you get a one-to-one consultation with a property investor so that you can have a bespoke strategy specific to your life so that you can hit the ground running after the workshop. We don't want you to attend a course after course after course. We want you to get results now. To secure your place in our world-renowned 5-star rated sellout property workshop, click the link in the show notes to secure your spot now. Spaces fill up quickly, so don't delay.